up, sexy people? It is Dave. It is Duncan back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the album from Norwegian melodic grind band Beaten to Death. The band's new album, Sunrise Over Rigor Mortis, will be released on May 31st
Such a fucking good name. It is such a good name.
via Mas-Kina Recordings. Okay, Keith Richards once said, "Getting old is a fascination thing."
I thought you were about to say Keith Richards produced this album. I was a bit like my beer almost went over the computer.
Keith Richards once said, "Getting old is a fascination thing. The older you get, the older you want to get." This is a thought maybe dawning on the band members of Beaten to Death as they prepare to uncage their new album, Sunrise Over Rigor Mortis. The Norwegian outfit claim that they have all aged horribly since the band's acclaimed last album in 2021 and have embraced that natural process and its theme with their May 31st and Mas-Kina Recordings released new full-length, and indeed the positivity it brings. Dismiss...
Norwegian bands are the best, man. Honestly, they've got this morbidity about the way that they just like talk that just makes me smile.
Dismiss those thoughts of a band slowing down and settle into a more relaxed acceptance of things, though for Beaten to Death are as uncompromising and voracious as ever, and Sunrise Over Rigor Mortis ensures no one will have any doubts. Unleashing their familiar and fiercely individual torrents of grindcore, dispute with melodic discord, the new offering is Beaten to Death at their most physically merciless, creatively ravenous, and gleefully mischievous. Unleashed on the grindcore scene back in 2011, Beaten to Death has quarrelled with and dismissed expectations of the genre and the boundaries of any hardcore fury from day one. Of course, their sixth full-length holds nothing back in its dismissal of trends and expected processed procedures, in its making either broadly grinning at both and having fun with the themes it takes apart. With all the releases, their new album was recorded live and mixed by guitarist Tommy Helm, with its body to be wrapped in the expressive art of William Hay. It's a marker for a band forging new triumphant misdemeanors and a profound example of pure incitement for maturity, or should that be joyous immaturity? So, album 6 from Beaten to Death.
Right, so how familiar are you with these guys?
Very familiar.
Right. This is like, yeah, because I think this is my first Beaten to Death album. Unless you tell me otherwise, I had never come across this band before.
Really?
Yeah, and boy, I wasn't surprised that you'd picked it. I'll tell you why. Because within about 10 seconds of the first song, I was like, "Geez, that drum's savage." The mixing that drum's pretty loud there. I wonder why Dave has picked this.
Well, so I first came across these guys back in 2013.
Was this a Rock and Reels thing?
It was a Rock and Reel album that we got sent in. The album was called Dodesfest. Yeah, that album was just like, who is this band? Like, where have they been my whole life? I need more of this. But after that came out, we were then introduced to other bands, one by the name of Incense, which we spoke about before. Another band called Big Muff 68, Duncan, that we've also
right.
Yeah. These guys are in all other bands as well.
Norway's a small country, Dave.
Yes.
So.
But yeah, that album was just like a kind of breath of fresh air, to be honest, in that kind of grind scene. I never heard grind done like that, or with a production quite like it, to be honest. And to be honest, I don't think I've yet heard another band that sound like Beaten to Death. I love that album. Dodesfest is amazing. They followed up with an album called Unplugged, which is anything but unplugged, which was phenomenal as well. And then they had Agronomicon, I think, after that, which was released in 2018. It was a good album, a bit heavier, not quite on the same level for me as Dodesfest or Unplugged, but they've put out bits and pieces since then. There's some BDPs and all that sort of stuff. But you know, it's been a few years since they've had a full length out. And like their previous albums, they don't really do long form. They do like 20 minutes is usually like their kind of max.
Oh, Davey, that's a call I'm willing to take.
I know. And this one, again, it clocks in just over 18 minutes, about 9 tracks in length. And I think, like, as serious and visceral as Grindcore is, I've always just kind of loved the fact that these guys just have fun with it. Their song titles are always very, like, kind of tongue-in-cheek. There's a track on, I think it's on Dodds Fest, which was my favourite of theirs. It was The Flesh Prince with Swell Hair. Amazing. Like, their song titles are just so good. But like musically, it matches like the song titles. These tracks are very playful, very unpredictable, and I kind of love that about these guys. You never really know where they're going to take things, but rest assured, even though they've said they are aging horribly, they haven't pulled back at all on Sunrise Over Rigor Mortis. If anything, they've pushed it even further, a bit more extreme. But obviously, it's heavy on the grind. Or they are a grind band at the end of the day. But they also include melody in their sound, and it's still a very integral part of this album.
That's why I guessed they were Norwegian.
Right. All right. Okay.
Because the melody in at least 2 songs, I was like, this reminds me of some Norwegian kind of blackened inspired post-punk stuff.
Yeah.
So.
The first track doesn't really give any of that away, to be honest. It's just a straight up like savage shred fest, like just over a minute of like ridiculous vocals, rapid blasts, that kind of gutsy signature guitar tone they've got. But as the album starts to unfold, they then start to kind of bleed or kind of feed that melody into the album. And it is kind of like little small doses at first, just little bursts of it. You're like, oh, what's that? A little bit of kind of blackened lead work on My Hair Will Be Long Until Death.
Great name.
And then some of the riffs on track 3, not going to try and pronounce that.
Oh, come on.
Also,
the band have written it. It's only a minute and a half. That'll be about as long as it takes for you to get it right.
Enkel Reza Till Limfabriken.
See? Nailed it.
Also, like quite kind of blackened in sound as well. But when you hit track 4, Minus Och, Minus Bleer, Minus Och, Minus.
Yep.
That for me is when the kind of beaten to death, that trademark sound fully kicks in. And I love it. Like, I love that sound, that blend that they get. It's heavy, but it's got this melodic kind of harmony to it that's anything, like, unlike anything you've heard in this genre. It's ferocious grindcore, but it's got this like kind of jangly indie kind of chords through it.
It's got a swath of the caveat attack about it, which I kind of love. I kind of love, because they're a band that do it, but do a kind of blackened retro 70s sound thing with it. This is bringing it into grindcore, which it shouldn't work.
Yeah.
And this is my introduction to it, and you're telling me there's other albums full of this?
Oh.
I will be going to the other albums full of this, because this is my fucking jam, Dave.
Yeah. You would think, like, on paper, you would think this shouldn't really work, but
it shouldn't. Like, it should not work at all. I just want to stress, if you're thinking that, you were probably right until this album came out.
Yeah.
Or their previous ones, which had more of it.
But it's brilliant. Like, and it almost becomes their hook. Like, vocally, this is fucking savage and guttural. The vocals provide like power and just raw intensity to the sound, but it's actually the melodic parts that are creating the memorability of the album. And it's always been that in their tracks. Those are the parts where you're just like, oh man. There's like a whole section on Mosh for Mika where it sounds like the guitars are underwater. And that's what was stuck in my head afterwards. That was all I could hear. Or there's like these kind of like folksy, clean vocals on Die in the Dream, which I was not expecting either. But again, it's like this unconventional kind of nature of it just really stands out. And I think that's what Beaten to Death are really good at. It's making a genre like this, which is usually difficult to separate, tracks on an album. So many grind albums just merge into one. But Beaten to Death have this like ebb and flow to the releases that allows you to kind of pick out the individual tracks, and they rarely use the same ideas twice. Not only that, the melody they infuse into their sound almost allows you like a break from what is usually a very exhausting style. And it is a really cool way of adding contrast to an album of this style. I think the kind of biggest what the fuck moment on the album was track 8.
Man, like, yeah.
We're not going to make it.
Yeah, which you got to think it's a play. You've got to, like, we're not going to take it. Come on. It has to be, when you hear that chord progression at the end, you're like...
Yeah. It starts very extreme, like it's ferocious, and you know, gradually introduces more melody before it kind of hits this moment where there's like a synth comes in, and then they kind of move into this like 80s
late 70s, early 80s, like fucking hair metally, jingly jangly, tassely awesomeness.
It did have a definite kind of whiff of the Kveler attack about it as well, and it's awesome. Like it's like just a killer moment on the album that will stand out as well. And then the album closes very well in a kind of traditional beaten to death style. You know, it's very grindy and lots of interwoven melody, multiple vocal parts all kind of layering over each other, and then they fade out, and I was like, oh no.
Well, they did. Can I just tell you my first listen to this?
Yeah.
Right, when the fade out, like I caught, because of how long was left on the album. Right.
Oh, right.
I knew it was going to fade back in because it faded in far too early. But when the fade kicked in, like I'll when I get to my section of the review, I'll tell you where I'm leaning with my grade. I fucking love this, right? And whilst I was listening, I was like, Dave must be loving this as well. And then the fade kicked in, I was like that. Oh no! And I looked at the time and I'm like that. Fade back in, fade back in, fade back. Yeah, there we go.
Yes, yeah,
he's back.
I did. When that happened, I was like, "Oh no, you fucked it."
You want to explain that for the listeners that may be checking out this review for the first time? Why would that be? Why would that be something? Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the fade out. I just
fucking
am not
hate them.
a fan. Sometimes it's done in a way that I can accept, but a lot of the times
you chop points for a fade out.
I do. Yeah, I will, absolutely will. Sometimes it just feels too abrupt. Like the track just shouldn't have ended that way. Yeah, I'm not a fan. But when they did the fade back in, I was like, oh yeah,
oh there we go, I'm
back
from the brink.
And I did that. I laughed out loud actually when it happened. I was like, you sons of bitches. But yeah, this is like, it's under 20 minutes. And even if you're not the biggest grind fan, it's like a super short listen.
I'm not the biggest grind fan.
Yeah.
We've spoken about this. I find that like there's a handful of bands that I think actually make it interesting, and the rest are just as one song for an album. And like I said, I kind of love this. So
yeah, I think that the balance of elements make this such an easy album to consume without feeling like overwhelmed by it. It's also very different to a lot of other grind albums, to be honest. Lastly, and by no means leastly, I love the production on these albums. Like every release, they deliver these they're very unique in what they do musically, but that also continues through into their production. Like, you know, you're listening to a beaten to death album because of the character and the production. And again, it's all over Sunrise, Over Rigor Mortis. The guitars are very metallic and wiry, and the drums sound very live sounding, and the vocals are just raw. But that's their style. You know, it's raw, it's unprocessed, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So that was my thoughts. What did you think as a newbie to beaten to death?
Oh, I fucking love this, right? So like this caught me literally like by 10 seconds into the first song. As soon as you're getting with this bit like, and like a guitar tone that just reminded me of fucking mid 2000s. That's just like fucking savage, like just punchy fucking guitar sound. And then that drum kicked in, and the drums are raw as fuck, like just like heavy as balls, man. And then the vocals kicked in, and I kind of like. Once I'd already checked to see how long the album was, and I was like, all right, this is like a death grind album. Cool. We've done a few of them before. Some of them have like been okay, some have not. We'll see how this one fares up. And instantly by track 2, I was like, right, there's a level here. There's something going on. it's a little bit different. And then basically from tracks 1 through 5, you're taken like everywhere. Like you're given like you mentioned before, underwater kind of flange guitar tones that go for a little bit longer than they probably should, but are fucking integral to how that song sounds. Track 4, which has that Covert Attack sort of swagger about it, and it works so well. And Enkel Resa Till Lim Fabriken. There we go. You didn't go high at the end like I did. Which I think is how they pronounce it. Right. Our boy John will let us know. And on that song as well, where that's a track that is effortlessly heavy to begin with, but just gives you something different at the end. By the end of track 5, I was honestly smiling. Like from ear to ear going, this is fucking brilliant. And you know, we're halfway through the album, the back half isn't all that long, what else are they going to give me? And they gave me everything. Bits that are just, and the thing about it, we talk about the quirk and all the rest, they are tight as fuck. Like grind can't be, right? You can't not be tight as fuck. Has to be, or it just all falls apart. But the way they shift up and do other stuff, like as a band, and then bring it back to, they never forget what genre they're in, even though they are very playful with it. And I think if you're someone that is a complete purist, then you miss the point of good songwriting. Like let's put it this way. I argue, and would argue very successfully in a court, to say that bands that are able to do the extreme side of things but bring in elements which are completely in more commercial genres and seamlessly put them together are more talented songwriters than a band that just does the most technical savage stuff in the world. Because their brains are attuned to that but not attuned to that and can't see the connection. The fact that they jump about the place and it's also interwoven and connected, once again combining things that shouldn't work to a way that when I'm listening to them they obviously work. It's like my narrow-minded list couldn't get over the fact that these things are practically adjacent 70s like power rock and fucking grind death, you know, like they're practically neighbours, like borrowing each other's sugar. I mean, that's how close they are. It just blew my mind. The production on this is fucking incredible, man. I love it. The guitar tone is absolutely amazing. I would kill to hear more bands have a guitar tone like this. It just sounds so punchy, but then all the stuff that they go into other genres with sound incredible. I've been on record this year as saying I'm embracing that 2024 is the year where the rule book on music is being torn up page by page in front of people. Well, you think we can't do that? Fuck yeah. You think we can't do that? Fuck yeah. And it turns out a band that I didn't know anything about had been doing it for a while. There are other bands that have been doing it for a while, but this couldn't have hit me at the right time if it tried. We'll get to the great. I love this. This might be the first time I can say hand on heart I got to the end of a grind album and was like that. All the awards. Like, can we just... like, what we got to do here? I fucking thought this was amazing. So, awesome. I've spun this one so many times. And not because of the length, just because I'm having a ball every time I hit play on it. So, there you go.
Nice. Okay, so final thing. Scores for Sunrise over Rigor Mortis. I went back and I listened to Dodds Fest and Unplugged, and I fucking love those albums. I've been listening to them for like 10 years. I mean, so I've had plenty of time to listen to those. I still feel like those two albums are like peak beaten to death. This one is maybe just slightly below that. So I'm going to 4.5 on this one. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I would highly recommend this. What about yourself? What are you thinking?
Oh, it's a big old fat 5 from me. I don't have any context to go on, and this is just fucking awesome. Nice. Yes, like 5. If I could give it more, I would.
Amazing. Beaten to death. Sunrise over Rigor Mortis. Out May 31st on Mas-Kina Recordings. Links to the band, to the pre-order, all below. Check them out, have a listen, see what you think. If you've never heard these guys before, now is the time. Get in on it. That is the review. Thanks for checking out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Ahora quiere que me